Probability is the maths that we use to help us when there are events that happen by chance. To give these events a number, we use the numbers between 0 and 1. 0 means it's impossible for that event to happen. 1 means it's certain to happen. Half, or 0.5, means there's an even chance of one of two things happening. Let's have a look at some examples. The sun will rise in the morning. We know that's going to happen every morning. I'm certain of it. So its probability is 1. Getting a tail when flipping a coin. There are two things that can happen when you flip a coin. Let's just ignore the chance that it can end on its side. You either get a head or a tail. There are two things that can happen, so it's an even chance of either of them happening, so the probability for that is 0.5. Or another way of looking at it is there's one thing that can happen that we want to happen, that's getting the tail, and there are two things that can happen, a head or a tail, 1 out of 2. Getting 2 6s when rolling 2 dice, there's only one way of that happening out of 36. So that's 1 out of 36 different ways. That means it's unlikely or very unlikely for that to happen. It's down this end here, close to 0. It can happen, but it's not likely. A student will use social media today. Well, while it's almost certain, it's probably not certain, so because there is a possibility that the server might be down for the day or something like that, but the probability for that to happen is going to be very close to being certain. Probably 0.99999. What do you think? And the last one, a rabbit will give birth to a gorilla. Well, I'm pretty sure that's impossible. So that would have a probability of 0. When we're doing probability, we need to understand some words. I'll start off by saying that a single die like this is called a die, and a dice is actually plural, so you'd need to have 2 or more to have a dice. So, the chance experiment. A chance experiment is something that depends on chance, like rolling a die. A trial is doing the experiment once. So each time I roll the die, that's called a trial. If I do it 3 times, that's 3 trials. So, let's suppose I rolled the dice 3 times and I got these numbers, 3, 2, and 2. The 3, the 2, and the 2 are the outcomes, what happened when I did the experiment. So the trial is actually rolling the dice, so rolling the dice, and the outcome is what I got when I did the experiment. So my outcomes are 3, 2, and 2. Next word. The sample space are all the things that can happen. If you roll a dice, you can get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. So all those things are the sample space, all the things that you could actually get when you do your trial. An event is what you want to happen. Now, event could be simple as just getting a 6, rolling a 6. Or it could be rolling an even number. It depends what you're trying to look for. So rolling an even number is one sort of an event. The favourable outcome is that you got the event you want to happen. So let's suppose I'm rolling my dice and I want to see my favourable outcome is to get a 2. And I'm going to write it like this. A is my event, and I want it, and I'm using these curly brackets, I want it to be a 2. Let's have a look at what I rolled before. I got a 3 in my first trial. That outcome is not favourable. It's not the one I wanted. But the next 2 were favourable outcomes. They're the ones I wanted to get, and I did actually roll a 2 twice. One of the things you need to be able to do is list outcomes. And that is, say what could happen when you roll a dice or flip a coin or whatever. So the first thing we're going to look at is rolling a dice and look at some events. So if I roll this die, the sample space is all the things I could have, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If my event is to roll a 5, the only thing that will make that true or be favourable is rolling a 5. If I roll an odd number, I need to list 1, 3 and 5 because they're odd numbers. If I'm rolling at least 4, that means I need 4, 5 and 6. At least means to include the 4 as well. Rolling at most 3 means I need to have 1, 2 and 3. I need to include 3 as well. Listing favourable outcomes. So if I've got 5 and 6 as the event that I want to happen, the favourable outcomes will be 5 and 6. Not getting a 4, the outcomes will be 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. 4 is missing. Rolling a 3 or 5 will be 3 and 5. Rolling a 3 and 4 and 4 can't happen because if you roll the dice you can't get a 3 and a 4 at the same time. That's the distinction between and or. With and, both things have to happen at once. With or, it can be one or the other. When we write probability, we write it as a fraction. And here is the fraction that we're going to use to work out the probability. The probability of event A, whatever A is equal to the number of favourable outcomes, the ones you want to happen, divided by the total number of outcomes, all the things that can happen. So let's do a couple of examples. In my first one, the event A is getting a 2, rolling a die. So if I'm going to write that as the probability of A is equal to 1 over 6, because there is only one number 2 on a dice, but there are 6 numbers altogether. The next one, probability of B, given that B is even numbers, the event even numbers. Probability of B is equal to 3 over 6. And that's because 2, 4 and 6 are the favourable outcomes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 are all the outcomes, all the possible outcomes. So there are 3 numbers, 2, 4 and 6, out of the 6 numbers on a die. So the probability is 3 over 6. Now because it's a fraction, we can actually cancel it down to a half. The last one, C equals 1 or 5. The probability of getting event C is equal to 2 numbers, the 1 or the 5, out of the 6 altogether, and that cancels down to a third. In this example, we've got a word, Cheltenham, that has 10 letters. And we're going to work out some probabilities that we select a letter E, a vowel, or not an E. So let's have a look. If I'm doing the probability of an E, there are 10 letters altogether there, and 2 of them are E. So I've got 2 chances, this E or this E, out of the 10 letters, and that cancels down to a fifth. In the next one, the probability of a vowel is equal to, again, there are 10 letters in the word Cheltenham, and if I look at the vowels, there's 2 E's and an A, so that means there's 3 favourable outcomes out of the 10 outcomes, 3/10, which doesn't cancel down. The last one, not an E, the probability of not an E, well, here's a good way of doing it. There's a 1/5 probability of getting an E, and not an E is the opposite. So that's going to be 4/5. So here's an interesting fact about probability. The probability of getting something and not getting something, those two things have to add up to 1. 4/5 and 1/5 make 5/5, which is 1.